Are you at a Waffle House?
Now, I'm just at some random restaurant. There was a internet outage like 20 minutes ago, so I had to get in my car, race out here, and do this with you, man. That's the thing, man. I got to hustle for my buddies. So,
Wait a minute.
so yeah,
The entire state of Arkansas doesn't have internet.
I don't know what happened. I just got out, left my house, and now I'm just in the clearest parking lot I could find to do this pod with you, man. College football doesn't sleep, baby. You got to keep it going. So if I just drop out, that's just exactly what happened. So my apologies all around, man.
All right, well, I won't keep you long then. But you know
No,
what?
let's do it.
You know what I think happened?
What's that?
I think that Sam Pittman cut the entire internet to the state of Arkansas so people stop talking about it. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely one of those guys on the SEC channel that's destroyed him. And what's very interesting, Blake, this happened last year. So in the college football media sphere that it doesn't get like as many views as the NFL or Mr. Beast or anything like that. But every year, my number one most viewed video I've had ever in college football was doing a video about the Alabama-Tennessee and the referees game. Okay. So, it was a very controversial. So, Blake, I dropped another video today on that.
Oh, no.
And dude, they are after me. The Gumps are at my necks. I'm to the point now where I hope Jaden Daniels has his absolute best game in the world, because some of the stuff that's been hurled in my direction has been crazy, which is funny because last year Tennessee fans were doing it to me. But you know this, Blake. You've been in the media game for a while now. Everyone just thinks you're a fan of that team whenever you say anything bad about them. So Arkansas fans are after me. But today, those Gumps, they want my neck, Blake. They want it.
Well, maybe you had a point. That game.
You tell me this. You tell me this. You tell me this, and anyone in the chat, because Blake, you know me as well as anyone in the media sphere. I'm not the referee guy.
That was so bad. That was so bad, though.
Bama went into that game averaging 7 penalties per game. They had one penalty.
For 5 yards.
For 5 yards, and it went in their favor. It was like one of the snap infraction things or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
That was crazy. That was absolutely crazy. So I understand us LSU fans, we have our gripes with Alabama officiating, obviously Patrick Peterson. But I never thought I'd say this. Tennessee fans actually have a point for once in their lives, that they got absolutely screwed this past weekend on some bad missed calls.
Let's talk a little LSU here, though. But I agree. They got so hosed. It kind of worries me a little bit going into Tuscaloosa after seeing that.
Yes.
Right? Like, it worries me.
Exactly.
All right.
And
go ahead. Go ahead.
We'll move on. No, we'll move on.
Well, I was just going to say that I don't want to be this conspiracy theorist guy. Like, hey, if we don't lose, it's because Bama gets favored. But I think you got to take that into account after what you saw from Bama, Tennessee.
If there was one thing I would tell Brian Kelly is this, okay? So when I went to examine these penalties, you can go to the SEC channel, Power Hour SEC, and you can look at it yourself.
Turn them in himself. Turn those penalties in to the SEC himself.
Yeah, you could turn them in. Why not? But I know Josh Heupel's in a lot of trouble because he's called out the referees and all that stuff. But what I would tell my team going into Alabama, because the 50-50 calls are just not going to go in your direction. They already don't when you're on the road. We saw that versus Missouri. LSU, that was probably the worst officiated game against LSU versus Missouri the last time.
No question.
Yeah, there were so many bad calls, right? The pass interference on Malik Neighbors that wasn't called. Obviously, Jaden Daniels on the QB sneak, the false start at the one. I mean, there was a lot. So when you go on the road, you're already against it. What I would say, though, is Tennessee's receivers, when they were getting mauled, if you will, these 50-50 calls, they didn't do a good job selling it. So if they are committing a penalty, sell it. If they're holding you, and Bama got away with one, and Blake, you're an offensive lineman, there's holding on almost every. But yes, flail your arms. Braden Swinson's done a really good job of that. And he got one versus Auburn that went in LSU's favor. I know it's cheap. I know it's manipulation to a certain degree. But I do think if the Tennessee pass rusher, so there's one play where he was getting choked. He was getting literally choked by the right tackle, J.C. Latham. If the pass rusher would have flailed his arms up in the air, he probably gets that call or sells it. So if you're on the road, make it blatant so the referee has to call it. But yeah, that was just a crazy game. But Blake, we'll move on.
All right. What did you think of LSU and Army? Look, Carter, I got to admit, I mean, any team, when you blank them, it doesn't matter who it is, it's impressive. I mean, I thought going into it, when you beat somebody by 62 and they don't score, that's utter domination.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you, Blake. But I would also say this. It did help that Army had some of the worst quarterback play you'll see. Now, no disrespect to him. I'm just saying this from an LSU perspective. He was a true freshman playing his very first start versus a ranked team that was hungry to get a shutout, right? So nothing against that kid. Nothing. All right. I don't want anyone to say, well, he was just bad. No. But the interceptions that they threw were directly to LSU defenders. So it did help that that was going in LSU's favor. Obviously, the tackling, Blake, does need to get a little bit cleaner. I thought Army broke way too many tackles, but you are right. Your overall arching point is correct. When you shut somebody out, it goes a long way. I also think, Blake, this was Mason Smith's first game where he really looked special. He had a few really, really special reps. Now, we understand level of competition. They're not the biggest line that you're going to see. It's Alabama's offensive line is huge, but that's why it's important, because Alabama's offensive line is so big, and Mason actually has the size to really go up against him. So you get Wingo with the extra week of rest here. You also get Jordan Jefferson, who had some good moments. That the tackling in that front seven, though, does need to get cleaned up. And obviously, we're going to see how the Zy Alexander situation, gets
good.
Yeah, it's gonna be tough. And Blake, that's kind of the sad thing about it, was some of these tackling mistakes is what helped lead to the Zy Alexander injury, right? LSU missed a few tackles on that first run. And then on that first run, it allowed them to throw the Hail Mary. And that, in turn, is what happened to Zy Alexander, right? So some bad luck there. But overall, you are right. Defensively, a shutout is great. Harold Perkins is still playing elite. But you would like to see more tackles made in the first couple of yards and them not gaining the extra 2 or 3 yards on every carry.
I'm worried about LSU in the secondary even more now than I was.
Yeah.
Your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I'm with you, Blake. I am. The Bama's receivers are playing better, and to go one step further, this guy is by far the most hated wide receiver in college football. Obviously, with what happened in the Tennessee game last year, got away with the Tennessee cheap shot on the field this year. But Jermaine Burton, the former LSU commit, played at Georgia, then he transferred over to Alabama. He's playing at a really high level right now, Blake. He's doing a good job getting open. He's doing a good job drawing penalties. And overall, the Bama receivers have been playing better, and their quarterback play has been playing better. Okay, you give Jalen Miller a lot of credit, Blake. He's done a really good job running the offense that Tommy Rees has put out there. And the inverse of that is also true. Tommy Rees is not calling a game anymore that's not conducive to the strengths of Jalen Milroe. So they are doing a lot better job calling plays that are good for him. And like you mentioned, Milroe's doing a better job getting the football down the field. A lot like LSU. They have dual threat quarterbacks that are really good at getting the football vertically down the field, and LSU's going to need to force Jalen Milroe to beat you in the intermediate game.
Offensively, LSU continued to roll. What did you think about what LSU did? Jaden Daniels and the crew, how did you like them offensively?
Yeah, Blake Jaden is up there. I mean, he's the second best quarterback to ever play at LSU at this point, and he's just doing everything right. He had 2 bad set of downs the entire first half that he played. You'll take that any day of the week, right? He was elite all the other set of the downs. And now, Blake, you see him starting to correct some of the mistakes that he has made previously, right? So the week before, the rollout pass to Malik Neighbors, he underthrew that one. This week on the rollout to the right, he leads BTJ perfectly in stride. We're seeing Jaden Daniels just overall as a deep ball thrower hitting people in stride, and that's just taking this offense to the next level.
Is there anything you saw that I mean, Carter, they're throwing the ball for 340 yards a game. They're running it for 213. I think the offensive line has played really freaking good. I think the receivers have played really good. Here's my question: do they have a weakness?
They don't right now, Blake. They really don't. I mean, you really can't point at anything. I mean, one guy that's kind of unheralded, and we would be in a lot of trouble going into this next week if he wasn't back, and that's Mason Taylor, right? He's someone we don't talk a whole lot about, but out of anybody that's on the team right now, Blake, the drop off from him to the next person is the steepest, right? And that's nothing against who's behind him. That's more so just talking about how good he's been for LSU.
Yeah, Mac
And keep in
Markway's
mind,
just not ready physically.
right. And that's nothing against him, right? He's more of a year two guy. It's just, I think at this point, we're realizing that Mason is a little bit more special than we initially thought he was, right? He is just a really, really, really good football player, Blake. He just knows where to be at all the times. He's really good at blocking, really good at catching. And honestly, one thing I really love about him, Blake, is he is good at getting other people open, right? He's good at selling the framework of the play, right? The Malik Neighbors touchdown was such a good play. He draws the safety, and then Malik is wide open into the end zone. Even though his numbers aren't gaudy, because obviously Malik and BTJ are just so special, he's just a really good football player, and he's continuing to make big-time plays for LSU.
When you look at this team, you have 2 weeks, Carter, to prepare. I mean, I don't want to start that now because we have a whole week next week to do it. But
yeah,
is there anything that you now, when you look at both of these teams, you just really like you go into this like, man, I think LSU can win because of this?
Yeah. So first thing, Blake, special teams is way better, right? LSU special teams are playing at such a high level. Now, Nathan Dybert, who is absolutely amazing for LSU this year, did have one go out of bounds. Obviously, you want that cleaned up before Alabama because you want every last little edge you can have. So Ramos is obviously kicking the football well. You don't really need the punt team if you're just scoring the way that LSU is scoring right now. So overall, special teams is getting better. For me, Blake, offensively, this game will be on the road. It's going to be raucous. It's going to be absolutely crazy. But obviously, setting the tone early is going to be key, right? And Brian Kelly's got some big decisions to make. Like, if you do win the toss, do you want the football first or do you want to defer to the second half? All those things will be discussed.
I take the ball and try to score as many points as I can as early as I can.
So
because
you want the ball first.
Did you see the SEC shorts thing today where they're like they taped the guy down and he had a shirt that said Alabama first half, and then the garage door opens and it's like Alabama second half, and he's like the bully on the block, and he's like he's like the John Wick. Carter, you score as many points as you can. And you know what I feel like? Joe Milton missed some crucial throws in the end zone that Jane Daniels is just not gonna miss. It's just not gonna happen.
Right. Yeah, and I think a lot of people kind of loop Jaden and Joe like before the season, kind of loop them in the same kind of, they're both transfers, they're both dual threat guys, but they're not even close in talent, right? Joe Milton's not a good quarterback. Jaden Daniels is a good quarterback, and he's going to hit some of those shots, right? Joe Milton missed one in the flat to Dylan Sampson at a Dutchtown that would have been a huge, that ended up being a 4-point swing, right? So obviously red zone conversion rate is going to be absolutely key, Blake. And then one more thing, it's going to be interesting. And I won't go too deep into it. We could talk about it next week. I thought Denbrock did a really good job introducing some new things for the Army game. And obviously one thing from a play caller perspective that Mike Denbrock has always been ahead of the curve on is this usage of pre-snap motion, right? Last year, LSU, even when they weren't a great offense, they were using a lot of pre-snap motion. This year, they're doing a metric F ton of pre-snap motion again, and you look at the best offenses in the NFL, yeah, you got your Eagles who don't use a lot of pre-snap motion, but you look at the Dolphins. The Dolphins use a lot of pre-snap motion. The 49ers who are playing right now.
Kansas City.
Kansas City. And what that does is and not to get all filmy here, but it just makes life easier for your quarterback.
Well, and Carter, you got to get in the right. You got to get in your right zone, and you got to pretty much show what you're doing when you. You all right?
No, I almost got a hit.
You're in a huge ass parking lot, and you almost with empty everywhere, and you almost got hit.
Yeah. It was kind of wild.
You skydived that thing like, hey man, I'm about to cap this fool.
I'm Jaden Daniels in the pocket, man. A gap blitz doesn't matter. I'm ready. I got fleet feet back here. But no, to the pre-snap motion thing, Blake, it is so huge, and you don't just do it just to do it. I mean, you got to have the players to go execute it, but it does make life easier, especially with a quarterback like Jaden Daniels.
A couple more things. I'll get you out of here. I don't want you out in the dark with all these mosquitoes, man. You look like a pterodactyl.
Oh no, they don't. No, dude, they have not bit me once. Knock on wood. That this skin is too beautiful. They're like, this guy's flawless right here. You can't. The mosquitoes don't want none of me, Blake.
They don't want none of you.
They'll get these hands. These mosquitoes, they're not ready for me, man.
All right, let me ask you this. You know what? Let's say this. I want to go around some college football with you. Anybody surprise you in college football last week?
No, not really. I mean, obviously, this Michigan scandal is juicy, but they've not played anybody. You know, like I don't know. Like, I look at Penn State, I look at Ohio State. I don't really think either one of them are really all that good. That was such an ugly game, and the thing that kind of pisses me off, Blake, and I hope it's okay if I say pisses off because I know you have sensitive ears, but it does piss me off that Marvin Harrison Jr. is having the season that he's having, because Malik Neighbors would be running away with the Biletnikoff at this point if Marvin Harrison Jr. didn't exist. And he's going to be the biggest threat for me at this point for Jaden Daniels and the Heisman. I mean, if you actually just go look at that Penn State game, Blake, he was the difference.
He has games that he disappears in. Notre Dame says hello.
Right. And voters would say he's got a crappy quarterback, which he does, right? I've never seen a wide receiver by himself win a game quite like Marvin Harrison did this past week versus Penn State. All right, that was up there with
Josh Reed says hello.
Yeah, Josh Reed. I mean, obviously, taking out my LSU bias. That was such a great performance from him. So
I agree.
Obviously, Blake, you know, you're in a spot right now where nobody just looks elite. I can't wait to see what Michigan does versus an actual team. And at this point, Blake, Florida State keeps winning, and that just makes LSU look better. So,
Florida State got a problem. Florida State's got a problem.
What is it? Let's hear
it. When Riley Leonard was in that game, they were getting pushed around up front defensively.
Yeah, I do.
And Carter, when you look at the deep down analytics, their fronts have not played well the last 3 weeks.
Yeah, so this would be my retort to that, is they've lowered the snap counts of their starting defensive lines, okay? So, like, they've not really played Lovett and Fisk as many snaps as you normally would because they know their backup defensive lines just aren't really that good. So they're saving up for the long term. In other words, I really do think this, Blake. I think they're load managing for the playoffs, right? They're unbeaten.
You were losing 20-17 against Duke going into the fourth quarter. Why will you save them then? You know what I mean? Like, you're losing.
Well, they played poorly in that game versus Riley Leonard. But I don't want to get I need to go look at it again, but I do think the snap counts have been lower for their starters, but that's obviously just an excuse. They've not looked their absolute best since they played LSU, but I think at this point, Blake, it's going to be so hard for them to not run the table and get into the playoff.
All right, I got one last question for you. You ready?
Hear it.
What is this? Can you see this?
Yeah, Gary. Y'all, y'all hate on Gary way too much, man.
It's
I know
not
Gary.
It's not Gary Danielson for me. It's you. First off, the hair. Okay, my man's got serious hair here. Now you have none. And second off, what's up with the stare, bro? And the sideburns, my man.
Yeah, I used to never smile in photos, Blake. I used to just stand on. I still don't. Like, my wife forced me to smile in most of my my wedding
Oh my
photos.
God.
But no, I at that time I never smiled in any photos. I always had a scowl, man, because I always stood on business, baby. I always meant business. Why do I fake smile for just a photo when we're just gonna get back to just frowning about our day? So I always gave the authentic scowl, man. That's what you got to give it, man. I stand on business, baby. But no, it was.
Boo.
But no, so that was at SEC Media Days, and
Oh, okay.
yeah, so Gary just always. I asked him to do an interview, and every year we would do like a 20-30 minute conversation, and after that we went and had lunch at the mall in Birmingham. They had like a Chick-fil-A in the mall that they had the event, so we went and had Chick-fil-A together. It was great, man. Gary's a good dude. So look,
You
I
know what,
understand he's enemy number one though for LSU fans. Enemy
dude?
number one.
They are so mad that that they got him against Bama. They wanted Kurt.
They wanted
But
Okay, let me ask you this: do you prefer Gary or RG3?
can I be real with you?
Let's hear it.
I don't mind Gary Danielson, to be real with you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't really.
Thank you.
I know that, and look, he does come off bias. I do think Carter, when it comes to him breaking games down, I don't think he's bad at all. I think he's pretty good. I think he's telling you the truth that you don't want to hear.
Yeah, I'm totally fine with Gary. The only issue is
No.
my mother hates him. My mother, if she
Mine
saw
does
Gary
too.
Daniels,
Mine
yeah,
does
dude,
too. She hates him.
it's crazy. I do think it is mostly moms that hate Gary Danielson. I don't know why Gary.
RG3
I
is
don't know.
he tries so hard and he's so bad.
Oh God. The only thing I'll say about RG3 is that he took Tyrann Matthews Heisman. But other than that, I don't mind a punny guy. I don't mind the puns.
He
But
completely lost me for a while when he talked about he picked that man up and nailed him to the cross.
oh, that was so extra. That was
That's
so.
more than extra. That's more than extra.
I couldn't believe. I couldn't believe he said that. Oh man. But yeah, I think it's RG3.
I will give RG3 this though. If he could calm down and just talk about the game, okay?
Yeah.
He's really good at breaking what's actually happening down. It's just he makes such stupid ass comments like that it just, it is, Anyway, all right. Episode 800. I wouldn't want to spend it with anybody else more than my man right here, Carter Bryant.
Let's go, man. So episode, actually, I remember I think I did episode 400.
You did.
And then episode 800. So episode 1200. I got to find another
No,
parking lot
we'll
to
bring
do.
you back for 1,000.